Call the meeting to order. We begin with a roll call.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Here.
Ken Fletcher.
Here.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve
Yes.
Rexler.
And pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, my.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, additions, corrections? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimous. We'll go into communications. We'll begin with a public comment session of the meeting. Any person wishing to speak on any subject facing the town of Winslow may come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and state your name and address.
My name is Bill Sadowski. I live on Quimby Lane. The Constitution of the United States of America gives you the right to freedom of speech. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag states justice for all. In 2012, I was attacked, assaulted, tased, and did bodily injury to my person in my own home for no reason by Haley Fleming, Michael A. Mishu, and Joshua Vegu. False police reports were filed stating I assaulted two police officers. Untrue. Perjury, falsification of documents, defamation of character was performed by these three in two different courts of law. Despite the effort of the management of the town of Winslow and the Maine Municipal Association to sway the judges and lawyers, I prevailed in a criminal court over Haley Fleming. Anytime I see these three criminals, I will call them liars to their
Can I ask you a
face.
question, please? Is this about?
Please don't interrupt me. I will call them liars to their face. I will not be harassed by the Winslow Police Department, the Fire Department, or the School Department. For doing so, if I have made any statements that are untrue, take me to court, and I will prove it. If I am harassed, if the harassment by the management of the town of Winslow does not stop, I will be forced to take legal action. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? If not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the MMA annual election. We have the vice president and the executive committee members up, and there were four four nominees for the four positions. Is that correct?
So, yeah, so they had the nominating committee, James Gardner, one person, and then you had to vote
Four for
There were
three,
three,
was that?
yeah.
Three nominees.
John Beckman, David Sear, and Ivan McPike.
Entertain a motion to cast our ballots for those four candidates.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimous. Board committee appointments. We have one, Amanda McCaslin to the Agricultural Commission. I'll entertain a motion.
Don't move.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on appointing Amanda to the Agricultural Commission? All set? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimous. And then our assessor would like to speak. Is she here?
Yes.
You don't know if you'd like to, huh? We're gonna make you.
No, I would love to. I have provided copies. I don't know if you have the most current. And this handout also includes the insert that will go with the tax bill this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike and I have gone over the numbers a few times over the past couple of weeks. One item that was in our favor this year, two items that were in our favor this year, above and beyond what we expected, was an increase in the main revenue sharing from $447,000 to about $601,000. So that helped. And also the tax rate calculator, if we have more than 5% of a personal property assessed base, more than what we have in total, then we get the enhanced tax rate reimbursement on Betty, 55.74% instead of 50%. So that helped us as well. Unfortunately, I still can't seem to get enough value to offset the increases that we have to appropriate. So we are recommending the 1864, and that would provide an overlay which is consistent with past years of $21,383. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
You know, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I really appreciate the work you did in helping us understand the impact of that tip. And I think Mike and I had a conversation, and that's the difference between, I call it the budget
Right.
number, and what we actually have to do for the tax calculation. And just for, not that it's a big item, but what we learned was that in our taxable valuation, we do include that property, which is approximately 15 million.
Right,
But then when we go through our budget,
right,
we kind of treat it like it wasn't in the budget,
right,
yet we have to treat it like it is in the
because
budget.
it's being assessed. as
So
part of
thank you
that.
very much. I appreciate you
Good.
helping me understand
Yeah.
it. And hopefully, as we go forward, we can remember that next time we do a budget.
Right.
You know, and
Take
it's
it
not a
into
big deal.
consideration.
You know, it made the difference of, I don't know, maybe 0.05 mils or something. But that TIF still has to be recognized when we do this.
Right, the finance
tax.
amount.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there any more questions or comments?
Just one, Judy, last, just for people that might be listening in, the tax rate last year was
1794,
1794.
and that actually went up from the previous year of 1674. So this is not as big of an increase as the previous year.
So it looks like it's a .71. I'm just trying to do the mental math. 0.7, so a 0.7 mil increase this year.
Go ahead.
No, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I just can't waste the opportunity to make the comment. If, even though we did get more revenue share, from 2% to 3%, we're still short of the 5%, which is in statute. Even though we did get more in education funding, up to 51% versus the voter-approved 55%, we still did not get fully funded from the state. My calculation says that if we had, we would actually been able to reduce the mill rate,
That would have been something.
because that would add up to $900,000.
It's really taken a hit on a lot of municipalities.
So, you know, I know that the legislature is committed, and we've got another budget process coming up, but I don't think we should forget that, because that has been such a major impact on the property taxes in this town. And thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, does these figures include, the sales to Johnny? No?
No, this is as of April 1st. The values are as of April 1st. Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna say that the mill rate might decrease if Johnny's sale goes through.
Well, for goodness, Mr. Chairman, actually, what we did when we put the budget together, we used, Judy's got it here somewhere, and I'm gonna find it.
The, from fund balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
$602,000. And I can remember a conversation at the time was, in the anticipation of the sale, we used, I don't know, I can't remember the number, but maybe 500,000, 400,000, because if we were gonna stay at the 12% limit, we couldn't have used this amount of money. So in a way, we've gone out and kind of bought it short, so to speak. And that sale is gonna help us keep the fund balance up as well as use more to offset the taxes, Jerry. So you're right. And we didn't use it all, so there's opportunities for next year.
Next year, the homestead exemption goes up to 25,000, but the state is reimbursing
100%.
the difference on that so that it will be a wash and not an expense to us, which is good.
For that year, but then we start absorbing some of that cost after that, I believe.
No, it will stay at the 70% reimbursement,
Okay.
which is good.
Anybody else have any other questions? You want to add anything?
Maybe because we're on TV, we plan to commit the property taxes on Friday.
Okay.
However, we will not be importing that into a tax billing mailing and probably for another 2 weeks after that, just so that taxpayers are aware that they probably will not see tax bills until maybe September 1st or that week afterwards. But we're more than happy to, accommodate them if they want to do, prepayments. We have a tax rate and set,
yeah.
so.
Are we all set? Thank you very much, Lou.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your hard work. Okay, reports of committees and commission. We'll begin with the town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, unless somebody has questions, I don't have anything to comment on. A couple of things we'll address later in the
Later
meeting.
on, yeah. Anybody have any questions they'd like to express towards the town manager's report? All set? We'll move on then. Department reports, the finance committee reports, and the financial report. Are there any questions, additions, or anything to those reports? And if not, I'll entertain a
So moved.
motion to accept all reports. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just quick, Paul, I see they're doing all the work on Hollowell Street now. That's great. That should be completed in a couple of weeks, so it looks, it looks good. Yeah, and Benton Avenue update, I know it was
We're
in,
finishing up curving tonight, the rain probably shut it off, but we're looking into doing final surface next month.
yep. I was out on the Reynolds Road, the part from Hobby Wyman Extension to the Vassarville Town Line. Is that in the pipeline for?
I'd like to do that sooner than later, it's pretty bad shape.
It is in bad shape, yeah.
I've discussed it with him several times because there was a washout on one side, and I emailed you about that a couple months ago as well. I've gotten some complaints about it, but it's just not in the budget.
Okay, it just looks like it might become a safety hazard at some point in time.
Especially
Because
that
of the shape
washout
it is,
area.
yeah. Just gotta keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't become,
Yeah.
especially at night out there, it's dark. And
Does DOT still plan on doing the China Road this summer?
As far as I know, that's next year's schedule.
That's next year's schedule? Okay, I thought it was this summer's schedule. Okay,
No, next
okay, all right. Any other questions about any of the reports? If not, all in favor of accepting our reports, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we go to the table business. This order has been on the table for a long time. And I think we would like to take it, what did you want to table it indefinitely?
Yes, postpone indefinitely, if we can take it off the table, because
So I would like to entertain a motion to postpone order number 10, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Definitely moved and seconded. Any discussion? You want to say something, Mike?
we should take it off the table first,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and then a motion to postpone.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Chairman, I move that we bring order 10, 2018 off the table.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Order number 10, 2018 is now off the table. And then the motion to indefinitely table has been first and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead, Raymond.
that was part of the, the overall big drainage system to try to get the houses on the Cushion Road between Mr. LaFountain's houses and there's several other houses there. That was part of the diversion to try to do that. After reading Paul's report, I also see that even just doing the section behind Mr. LaFountain's house would be pretty expensive. Yeah, but we haven't done all the engineering on that, but From the sounds of your report, it looks like with the DEP involved now too?
You know, I'm sure they're classifying it as a stream. As a stream, no question about permits.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
we'll actually be addressing that in our,
Oh, okay,
Yeah, we
okay,
have-
I'm
we
sorry.
have-
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, is that take a roll call vote? So
Yes.
definitely postpone. If there's no further questions, we'll have a vote.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian,
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Now we move on to old business. Order number 15, 2019, providing for the sale of tax-acquired property. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? That's an order, so that's a roll call vote.
It is, yep. Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Move on to order number 16, 2019, under old business. Providing for authorization of the town manager to convert the town's existing streetlights to LED streetlights by signing the agreement and determining the cost. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? We're all set?
Yeah.
We'll have a roll call vote then.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. We will now move on to new business. Ordinance number 9, 2019, an ordinance providing for an amendment to Chapter 2, Administration of the Town Ordinances by adding the attached article excess billing for services, XX billing for services. Be ordained by the Town Council, Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the Town Council wishes to bill for certain services, now therefore be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow, Maine, that Chapter 2 Administration of Town Ordinances be amended by adding the attached article excess billing for services.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
so at the last council meeting, I was asked to put this ordinance together, so I worked with the town attorney and came up with some simple language that allows the fire department to bill for certain services.
Anybody have any questions? This will require second reading, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
If we're all set, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 10, 2019, providing for an amendment to Chapter 5, Business of the Town Ordinances by adding the attached Article 8, Medical Marijuana. Be it ordained by the Town Council of Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the town's Medical Marijuana Committee has recommended the attached Medical Marijuana Ordinance. Now, therefore, be it ordained by Town Council, Town of Winslow, Maine, that Chapter 5 businesses of the town ordinances be amended by adding the attached Article 8, Medical Marijuana. What is your pleasure? Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Is open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so the marijuana committee looked at both recreational use and medical and felt that it would be prudent to wait on the recreational use and let that play itself out to see what that looks like in the future. But they did recommend that we pursue allowing medical marijuana facilities or businesses.
Has the state even finished the recreational part of it? Yeah, they have finished it. Okay. And when
Well,
and it seems like they go around in circles on that.
excuse me,
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, you know, probably, you know Mike better than me, but the last thing I read in the paper that they had hired a consultant.
That's right.
Who was, I'm assuming, whose job is to actually do training or communication around the rules that the legislature approved. Now, that's my assumption based on what I've read. I don't know if that's totally correct.
Any further discussion on ordinance number 10? And this will require a second reading and a public hearing also?
Yes.
Ready for roll call?
Okay, I guess we'll have a roll call then.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian. Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. We will now move on to ordinance number 11, 2019. An ordinance providing for an amendment to Chapter 14, Article 4, zoning districts by adding medical marijuana caregiver store, medical marijuana cultivation facility, medical marijuana dispensary, and medical marijuana testing facility as conditional uses in the mixed-use zoning district. Be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows, whereas the town's marijuana committee is recommending these uses as conditional uses in the mixed-use zone. Now therefore be ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow, Maine, that Chapter 14, Article 4 of the Winslow Town Code titled Zoning Districts be amended by adding medical marijuana caregiver store, medical marijuana cultivation facility, medical marijuana dispensary, and medical marijuana testing facility as conditional uses in the mixed-use zoning district.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
Yeah, good,
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, just, I think I understand it, but I will ask the question to make sure. Principally, what we're saying is in the mixed use, 4 out of the 5 functions can be a use, and the one that's not is the manufacturing facility.
Correct.
That's correct. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any further comments, questions? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes,
Jerry
Yes.
Kurian. Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. We will now move on to ordinance number 13, 2019. An ordinance providing for amendment to the Winslow Code Book, Chapter 4, Building and Plumbing, Section 401 MUBEC and NFLPA 101 Life Safety Code by adding the underlying language.
We have 12, right?
What happened 12?
Just rolls in with the rest of them.
I guess I threw it away. I will repeat and go back to ordinance number 12, 2019. Pardon me. Town Council, an ordinance providing for chapter amendments, Chapter 14. Oh, this isn't, okay, that's what was confused me, okay. Chapter 14, Article 4 zoning districts by adding medical marijuana establishment as an allowable use in the industrial zoning district. Be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows, whereas the town's marijuana committee has recommended this use as an allowable use in the industrial zone. Now therefore be ordained by Town Council of the Town of Winslow, Maine, that Chapter 14, Article 4 in the Winslow Town Code titled Zoning Districts be amended by adding medical marijuana establishment as an allowable use in the industrial zoning district.
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion. So does that mean, trying to figure out what's the difference between that one and the last one?
Because the other one's mixed-use zoning
Mixed use.
district, this is not industrial.
Right, so the mixed-use zone doesn't include manufacturing,
This one does.
and this one does.
So you can do manufacturing in the industrial zone.
Correct.
Okay.
all 5, actually.
Yes, all 5.
All 5 would be, right, yeah, yeah. Is there any further questions or discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry
Yes.
Kurian. Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Now we move on to ordinance number 13, 2019. An ordinance providing for an amendment to the Winslow Code Book, Chapter 4, Building and Plumbing, Section 401 MUBEC and NFLPA 101 Life Safety Code by adding the underlying language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section. Be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows, whereas the code enforcement officer has recommended Section 401 be amended. Now therefore be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow, Maine, that Chapter 4, Plumbing and Building and Plumbing, Section 401 MUBEC and NFPA 101 Life Safety Code be amended by adding the underlying language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached sections.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's open for discussion.
No, good, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to our code enforcement
Yeah.
officer. Can you explain the need for the change? You know, I don't question it, but I just didn't, you know, I'm not up to speed on all those codes.
Apparently, a few years ago, there was a change made to that section that only allowed the code enforcement officer to do inspections based on residential codes and to make people get a third party for all commercial building. This just, and that wasn't even really I don't know if it was legal or not, but we're trying to set it straight so that I can continue to do all the inspections based on UVAC.
You do them now, currently? We all set then? If we are, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry
Yes.
Kurian. Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Now I'm missing 14. Okay, we don't have a paper copy of the 14, right? Is that correct?
We do. You can use mine.
Yep.
There you are.
Ordinance number 14, 2019. An ordinance providing for the amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the following lots on tax map 4, lots 25G, 25F, 17A, 17J, and tax map 1, lots 128, 126, 127, 125, as they border the Augusta Road from low-density residential zone to mixed-use zone. Be it ordained by Town Council of Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the planning board voted to recommend that the following lots on tax map 14 and tax map 1 be rezoned to the mixed-use zone. Now therefore be it ordained by Town Council that such properties on tax map 4 and tax map 1 as they border the Augusta Road be rezoned from low-density residential to the mixed-use zone.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
Now, if I'm correct, Mr. Chairman, this is on the Augusta Road, as the section that was not brought up last time, that we,
Did not rezone, I think.
last time.
Is that right? Do I have that right?
That's correct, yes.
Any further discussion?
I'm not gonna be voting because my property's in that.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Now we move on to order number
One question, Mr. Counselor. Mr. Chairman. Does that need a second reading?
Yes.
Can we forego that?
No, because we need to advertise and notify the abutters.
Okay, I didn't know where we had already done that once, we still had to do it again.
No, have a public hearing. We will move now on to order number 17, 2019. Town Council, an order providing for an election to consider proposed amendments to the Winslow Town Charter. Whereas the council committee has reviewed the charter and recommends adoption of the amendments attached to this order, and whereas the council finds that the amendments that are summarized would be impractical to print on the ballot, and the summary does not misrepresent the subject matter. Now, therefore, be it ordered by Town Council of Town Winslow as follows. 1, the attached proposed amendments be placed on a ballot at the municipal election on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. And 2, the charter amendments passed by the voters take effect on January 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Ken and Jerry for going through the charter and working with me to identify necessary changes, so thank you for that.
And if I could comment, Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the work that Mike and the town attorney did, because when, once in a while, we would get to a subject and you know you want to say something, but we aren't sure how to put it in words, and Mike did some extra work on 1 or 2 items just to make sure that the intent was there and it was legal in the sense of it didn't infringe on rights and other policies. So I do appreciate that work. It helped us a lot.
Raymond.
Yeah, the section 205 prohibitions, except where authorized by law, no councillor shall hold any town office and or town employment. And the new portion says, or employment with the school department during the term for which the council was elected to the town council. I just want to say that I have been an employee as a coach for the town on and off since, I believe, 1998. So this would pretty much eliminate that from mine. I still would like to coach in the future, But according to this, I'm looking for some type of, you know what I mean? Because I'm kind of like going to be eliminated from something that I really love to do for a long period of time. So I don't know whether we could say, except we're authorized as of January 1st, any new, or even September 1st, as of any newly elected official would, you know, as of this date, would be exempt from that, so that I could possibly still coach, at least in the future. That's just my.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good, Mr. Chairman. We spent quite a bit of time on this because we understand, you know, it's very hard to have just an absolute. The key is the pay. You know, if you're unemployed, that means you get paid. And that's where it gets into this area of perceived conflict of interest. Not that saying anybody has had a conflict of interest, but the perception. And when you read the main statutes on conflict of interest provisions, it doesn't say it has to be proven. It really talks about perceived. And that what we did talked about is say, okay, maybe in this case it's not a big deal, but what if somebody else wanted, and I think the example I use, what if the principal of one of the schools that lives in Winslow wants to run for the council? And there was actually court cases and documents in the state of Maine, and I can't remember the towns, but it was Falmouth and so forth, where that became a big issue. So that's where we did, you know, tried not to make it draconian. It just said the employment is the key. If somebody wants to volunteer to be a coach or work on other things for anything, fire department, school, as long as it doesn't involve employment or the exchange of money, that's where I think the line seems.
Does that help you at all?
Doesn't help me at all, no.
You were paid as a
Because
coach?
it's still, it doesn't help me at all, because it just still says that I can't coach, you know.
Were you paid as a coach and you weren't a volunteer?
Of course you get paid as a coach,
Right, yeah,
right.
I mean, not millions of dollars. I have a question. So that means that no one on the town council could volunteer for the fire department then?
Not if you're paid.
The volunteers are paid, so, okay.
Ben?
All right, now, when I first started to run for council, back some time ago, I was a school bus driver. I'm not now. But they told me that a school bus driver was not considered an employee of the school department. It was a contract deal, just like when I did the phone systems in Winslow schools. I did that for about 8 years. And I was like a contractor instead of an employee. I did get paid, but I was an employee per se, but I was a contractor to do that particular job.
Is that gonna be a
like
grade?
Ray would be a contractor to do the coaching. I was contracted to do bus driving.
I think we'd want to have a legal opinion on that.
Yes.
Because if you think of the implications, let's just say one of us on the council had a construction business, and then we were employed by the town to work. Now, there's ways of getting around that, because that person could not partake in any discussion of that related work. But this is a really tricky area, and you know, I don't want to just say absolute, but the minute you become an employee in the sense of you're getting paid, perception can be there that you're being influenced by that arrangement.
When you were a contracted worker, you were on the council when you did bus driving.
Yes, I did. And I was on the town council when I did the telephone work.
Telephone work.
Yeah.
Did that ever influence you?
No.
In anything, or
No.
any decision here?
Not at all.
At any point in time?
Well, one time I said, yeah, we need a second bus, something like that. But, I mean, we can't line item that, but I did make that comment. It's the only time I made a comment about anything to do with the school that I was involved with.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, I can fully understand
Right.
where everybody is coming from
Right,
here.
right.
But we're a small town. We do have multi-functions within the town. Some would be on and the council is a diverse group. You would think at some point in time that you would, maybe not during the term of councilorship, but at some point in time, you want to encourage your councilors to be part of the town and part of the system that's in. I know you can do it as a volunteer, but once you limit your pool of councilors in the limitation, then I understand where everybody's coming from. I'm just
I
trying
agree
to.
with you on this one.
I
do.
try to make it, because not everything is on contracted, and maybe Peter can comment, but there's no ambiguity about the salaries. It is a very calculated, very up transparent system that we go by here as far as that goes and stuff.
Isn't that like a stipend type thing more so than an employment thing?
You don't have a contract, you're not signing a contract. I mean,
But it's a stipend, you know, it's a certain set amount.
Yes,
Stipend.
it's depending on, because everyone has a pay, and then say I did it for 5 years, then there's a small increase for experience-wise that comes in, but it's all calculated. There's no ambiguity between it. It's all spelled out in a very, very systematic way, you know. I'm just bringing this
I
up
think,
just to...
no, I think you have a good point, Heidi.
I agree with both sides. I agree that's a conflict of interest if you're a teacher or someone of power, of authority, who, you know, volunteered for the school board and then also came here and worked. But I can see Ray, I mean, it's a coaching position. You're not getting paid a lot. It's more of a volunteer thing. They just probably pay you for your gas or something,
No,
you know?
I'm not gonna downplay it here either, you know what I mean? It's a set amount that comes in, that's part of coaching, you know, for the hours. I don't know what it comes out per hour, but it is very much.
I
know
think that in
but-
terms of influence over the council, a coach for a position is not going to be, I mean, we're not all gonna sit here and pretend that we don't have our own agendas as counselors and why we join the council for certain reasons. Let's not all pretend that. I mean, that doesn't exist. But I don't think that coaches and stuff like that would have that much effect.
Well, why couldn't that add it in that full-time employment? Because a bus driver, a coach, we're only part-time. And it was very clear that we were only part-time employees and not a full-time employee of the school department.
You know, good, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Let's just throw out a couple hypothetical examples. Let's just say there was a part-time employee of Public Works who then wants to run for council. Or let's just say there was a counselor who wants part-time work working for Public Works. Let's just say that a principal, let's just say it's a school teacher that is a part-time employee that wants to run for council. You know, the line is very hard to draw because either you're in or you're out. And that, you know, I did a little bit of research on this, and I probably should have brought all the papers. Some of the towns in Maine have had to deal with this issue. And it can get very tricky because you don't want to infringe on anybody's rights, but at the same time, you have to treat everybody the same. You know that we can't say, well, okay, it's okay to be a part-time employee, but you can't be a full-time employee. Or it's okay if you only spend this many hours, only get this amount of money versus more than that. It's a tricky issue, it really is. And that's where I think that from the research I did and looking at what's gone on in other small towns who face the same issue, small populations, people get involved, but you gotta maintain that clear, I call it the clear line, that there's no perceived conflict of interest.
So recusing yourself from a vote doesn't work then?
No.
Did our legal counsel weigh in on this particular issue, this particular part of it? What was his?
Well, he looked at the language.
He just approved it.
Yeah, and approved it and said, you know, that meets obviously the straight face test. And we kind of went back and forth on that because, you know, we wanted to maybe make it okay for some classes of people, but not okay for others. And Bill Lee basically said you can't do that. You can't say, you know, a part-time employee is different than a full-time employee. But I've made a note. What I'll do is get an opinion from him on that. Talking about contract employees.
So we can make a motion to table this?
No, actually, you could go ahead and take this reading, and I'll have the info for the next.
For the second reading.
For the second reading. We're on a timeline with this, because this has to be on the ballot.
Right.
So.
Okay.
It is possible the voters wouldn't approve the ballot measure too. I mean,
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yep. Yep.
One of the things is that if we took this out, right, I get a little concerned. But if you had one of the councilors would end up working at Public Works, now how do you, as the Public Works Director or the foreman, basically discipline them or say no to them? Makes it hard.
well, there's a chain of command in personnel.
Yeah, we're on second.
That wouldn't be, I don't think that would be an issue.
It's not that issue right there, is that that same person is gonna be voting on your budget.
No, I would assume a public works employee would not be participating in a vote on the public works budget. I'd assume they would have to recuse
Well,
themselves.
that's already part of the charter.
That would be my assumption, but I'm not sure.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
I don't believe that any councilor should work for any department within the town, like the Public Works, the library, or anything, because we have direct control over that budget. The school department, the school board gives us a budget, so they really control their budget. Am I
The line item part of it.
the line item part of it, and then it comes to us and we approve overall the budget. I think that's a distinction here that you might want to bring up with a lawyer too.
But then the town also has to vote on it too.
Yes,
If we vote on it,
but not
then
the line
town-
item, we just
Right,
say
but
it's
the
too
town
much,
still
go
needs to
back
vote.
and
So, there's another
cut, you
thing.
know what I mean? And I'm not saying that somebody who was there could not have, under certain circumstances, could influence that decision or not having cut that position because a council is in that position. So, you know, it is tricky, but yet I think, you know, I'm just trying to,
Well, I think
right
it's-
now, just doing something that I've always done, and I'm not against any of it. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to find a way, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning, saying as of September 1st, or the next election, as of the election in November, any newly elected councilors at that point in time would not be able, the wording would adhere to. That's all next year, you know what I mean? So I would be, any councilor here would be exempt from the new ordinance until they were out of office, you know. But I know that's tricky also.
Good, Mr. Chairman. I think this is an important discussion, and I certainly respect the opinions and the history and all that. And I do think that we need to, how do I say this right? I do think that we need to draw that line. Now, if somebody is so impassioned that they want to volunteer without getting paid, you know, I mean, it's not a lot of money, so it's not like you're gonna have to sell your house or whatever. And I certainly respect the fact that if somebody says, I'm putting time in, I think I ought to get paid. But if you want to be a counselor, and if we want to make sure there's no perceived conflict of interest, why is it not appropriate to say that is the standard that we're going to live by? And then if I want to volunteer to coach or help anybody, I can do that, and that's my choice. Which would not prevent me, it would just prevent me from getting the paycheck while I'm a counselor.
I think, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think it's beyond the paycheck, and it's not about the money. It's not about the money for us. You probably get paid more to coach than you do sitting here. So it's not about the money, it's just you wanting to spend your time and do something that you've been doing for quite a while?
I am not sure that a volunteer, because of the sensitivity of working with children and stuff, you have to sign, there has to be some pay there. I don't believe that you can just volunteer for a head coaching job, because other people, you know what I mean? You know, then why wouldn't they put you in that job then? Because you're volunteering, they don't have to pay you at all at that point in time. I think there might be some objections to that too.
You have to be fingerprinted, you have to have background check, and all that does is to be a coach or a bus driver.
Yes, that's very correct.
So it isn't like a volunteer type thing. So you now that puts you on the other side of the line a little bit.
Well, you're gonna investigate it, we'll
Yes.
bring it up, so we can vote on it, and then we can have a second reading at some point in time. At the next
Anybody else
meeting.
want to have any more discussion?
So we would just vote on this, not vote on the motion to table it?
Right, we're gonna vote on this and we'll have a second reading. Before the second reading, we'll have an opinion rendered by our
Yep.
council. Does that sound all right with everybody? And then remember, it's still gotta be approved by the voters too.
Right.
So if there's no
You agree
further,
with the whole thing except for that one portion. You still either gotta go all the way up or all the way down.
Right.
if there's no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
No.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian,
Yes.
Patricia West.
No.
Ben Twitchell.
No?
Steve Russell.
I'm gonna say yes tonight, and then so we can hear our lawyers, so I'm gonna say yes. I'm not crazy about it. I wanna hear our legal opinion. So that passed 4-3. Resolution number 24, is that right?
Yes.
Resolution number 24, resolution providing for authorization of the police department to use $1,033.93 from the police confiscated fund account to purchase workout equipment for the police department. Be resolved by Town Council, Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the police chief is requesting to use $1,033.93 from the PD confiscated fund account to purchase workout equipment for the police department, and whereas the funds are available in the police confiscated fund account. Now, therefore, be resolved by Town Council of the Town of Winslow that the police department is hereby authorized to use $1,033.93 from the police confiscated fund account for the purchase of workout equipment for the police department.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion. Go ahead.
Is the equipment gonna stay in the department? Like where? Oh.
Yes, downstairs.
In the kitchen? Where are you gonna work out? In the kitchen?
The training center for workouts.
Oh.
Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimous. Moving on to resolution number 25, 2019, a resolution providing for the authorization of town manager to accept the attached personal letter of agreement from Deerville Engineering to design a drainage system for property on the Cushman Road at a cost of $14,000. Be resolved by Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas stormwater from Joe Avenue flows across property on the Cushman Road, and whereas Deerville Engineering has provided the town with a proposal to design a drainage system to address the stormwater on the Cushman Road property at a cost of $14,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council, Town of Winslow, that the town manager is hereby authorized to accept the attached proposal letter of agreement from Deerville Engineering to design a drainage system for a property on the Cushman Road at a cost of $14,000.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, you know, I think this is a piece of work that we absolutely need to do, and just to make sure I understand it, this is just the cost of the design, which will include a cost estimate.
Yes, yes, eventually.
Okay, so there'll be a design with a cost estimate of, to do that work. And of course, we'll have to go out to bid probably, and all
They
that.
also made the comment that even though we review it, we may not get it done.
Right, because we have to go through, you know, the DEP and the Corps of Engineers because of the forest.
We won't be dealing with the car if we don't go into the wooded section.
Right, because the way I understood it, if we stay out of the woods, the Corps of Engineers says, that's not our jurisdiction.
It's basically the woods, the Corps of Engineer already said they're not gonna do this part.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Ray?
Paul, well, you got the, yeah.
Let's try.
It's just so many other people are now gonna be involved in it, and, you know, you're looking at, you know, it would, as much as I know there's a need for the project, I mean, this cost is gonna come in at, I mean, I can't, we don't know what the cost is, but I can't help but think that,
I don't think it's gonna be cheap.
yeah,
Because from what I've spoken to him, there's gonna be a section of pipe, and we're gonna have to put it in some kind of detention pond. Because at the end of the day, we don't want the water rushing any faster than it is now to get to the Clifford Avenue stream, so anytime you do a pond, you end up with extra cost, and you end up with extra maintenance that those ponds have to be maintained on a yearly basis. And
yeah.
that'll fall back onto Public Works.
My only thought is considering, is this $14,000, I know it's been an ongoing issue with the landowners and with Mr. LaFountain and everybody, but is that money wisely spent for this, knowing in the end that, what's the chances of the project coming to fruition? I know we need to have, it's just to get a cost, it seems.
I guess that's your decision to make. That's your decision
I know,
to make.
I know, I'm just using it as, I'm just discussing it at this point in time.
Yep. Ben?
Yeah, we did have this all pass through the council, and it came in over bid, and then all of a sudden it kind of fell flat. Because this was all set to go, basically, except for to get the work started, wasn't it?
Right, but the
Bid came in.
the $750,000 project came in at $1.4 million.
Exactly. So it's something that's already been really approved.
Yeah, I just,
Jerry, go ahead.
One question that I have is, what are we gonna get for 14,000? You know, what's the length of the project, the scope of the work?
$14,000 will design the system starting as you exit the woods and get to Clifford Ave.
About how long is that?
300 feet probably, or more. And it'll get you, if we get the permit, it'll get you an NRPA permit, which I've been told the permit fee's probably about $1,000. It's not exorbitant like some of them, but that's added on to the 14, because that's not part of the $14,000. Because they can't quote it when they give it, because they never know, you know.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, the way I remember it, you know, the scope has significantly changed with this. Because before, what we were gonna do was take care of this bigger issue, right? And principally, I shouldn't say it, principally what we're gonna do is put in some culverts and a pipe so that the landowners can have access to their land. It's really not gonna change the flows from Joe Avenue.
The flow's gonna stay the same. The only way we're gonna change the flow is when we get the money to go in and do the large project that we're talking about.
So this scope has significantly changed
Yes,
with this proposal to do a design.
yes.
This is kind of like
Yeah. This just addresses the wet areas that,
behind people's houses.
correct.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
and Ken's right, if we get the big project that diverts the water, then this project wouldn't even be needed. So, but the chances of getting that project with the blasting and everything to divert the water.
We designed that project instead of going down through Norton Field. We've got a design going down Norton Street. Of course, it's still a $950,000 project. There'll be a lot less blasting. We won't catch quite as much water. We're also going to be able to divert part of Cushman Road, which will reduce some of the flow going into that stream.
And that project obviously has not been approved yet.
Correct. I have the estimate. We haven't brought it up. I was going to bring it up in budget time.
That would, that would eliminate the need for this project, though.
Correct. It won't completely dry it up, but it'll get most of it out of it.
But do you still have the problem of access? Even if we dry it up some, they still have the problem, they can't just fill it in.
Correct.
Without that pipe.
Exactly.
but your flow will be significantly reduced, where you might get by with a lot smaller detention pond and a smaller pipe
Right,
than what you're getting now.
right.
That I can't.
No, understood, but
Right.
So we might design a project and then get a scope of work for this project. We might, at budget time, discuss a $1 million project for diversion. That would, at that point in time, change the scope of project on this project, where we would have to go back and re-engineer for a lesser type of flow. So to me, if we, I hate to face Mr. LaFountain again, but saying is, at least if we do approve it in the spring, and then, to me, that would make sense to do the engineering at that point in time with the whole project again, then to spend $14,000 on something that we might approve that, on a problem that doesn't exist after, if we approve the bigger project in the springtime, and then it would be a lesser project there.
Because if you ask my opinion, I'd rather see go towards a big project because it addresses bigger drainage areas, problems in that whole Sunset development, which we're trying to eventually rebuild that section and fix the streets.
But if we don't go ahead with this tonight, what's your timeline on that? On the bigger, addressing the bigger issue?
I'd get the plan designed.
The plan is designed,
We need to come up with funding.
and it came in less than
It's a
the,
cop out on my end, but it's,
did it come in less than the 1.4 you're saying?
right now our estimate's about $950,000.
But will this help Mr. LaFountain?
Yeah,
Yes.
that will, yes.
But, well, not totally. He just said not totally. It will cut down some of it.
Yes.
So you
Big
still got
project,
water
you mean.
running across it.
The big project, you mean, would cut down on it.
It will cut down some on it, but it will still, they will still have to worry about the water coming across their property. And they can't really fill it in, because then it'll back up to the first above it.
Well, goodness, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like, even if we do the big project and find 950,000 and everything else, we're still gonna have to address this issue,
There'd be still something here to do.
because the owners just can't go out and fill it in.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna be in violation of DEP, right?
Correct. Now that they've classified it as a stream, it becomes a whole different.
Wetlands or something, I read the thing, if it meets two criteria,
Right.
it becomes a wetland or something.
A stream.
Because they screwed up when they put the drainage in up at Joe Ave. That created this stream.
Right. So it kind of sounds like the way that, we're gonna need to do something, even if we spend $1 million, we're still gonna need to do something here, because the water's not going away.
No.
Not all of it.
Correct.
I want
Okay.
to turn into
It just might be a smaller scale.
It might be a smaller pipe and a smaller drainage, a smaller retention pond.
Right.
But we
But
don't
if
know
we-
what,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I'm
We
just-
don't, go ahead.
Finish. Go ahead.
Okay, we don't know what the actual cost of the, on the 950,000 is gonna be when we put it out to a contractor. Could be $1.5 million, and that will kill that project. We'll have to come back and look at redesigning it. During that time, we won't have the other project.
That's what happens a lot.
Mr. Chairman, one more question,
Go
if I
ahead.
could. Let's just say, Paul, and look in your crystal ball, right? Down the road somewhere, we're gonna have to do drainage for Joe Avenue in that area, because it's gonna fail or something.
Mostly because there's very little there now.
Right. So if we didn't have this issue, when would you project that you'd want to do that work on Joe Avenue out there? Based on priorities?
Our priority as far as drainage is probably one of the bigger priorities because,
Okay.
because we always have those impacts when we get those heavy rains that we've had at McDonald's and Bay Street, where we've had those floods in the last couple of years. And that's part of what I'm trying to reroute a lot of that stormwater, get it away from that bottleneck.
So what I'm hearing, let's just make believe we didn't have the Cushman Road, I'm draining water across your backyard issue. You believe that we need to address that bigger drainage issue within
Couple of years.
a couple of years? Okay. So it's not like we could
I mean,
do this.
Perfect world, I want to do it next year, but I realize that that's not realistic.
So I'll phrase it another way. Even if we went ahead and took care of the Cushman Road drainage, we're still gonna have to do the bigger job.
Because it doesn't eliminate the water that's, you know, that it's still, we're still gonna overflow that system we put in on the Cushman Road probably if we get those 5 or 6 inch rainstorms.
Yeah.
Especially in the wintertime, when we'll still be flooding out the businesses that have been flooded in the past. You know, unfortunately, we're stuck with something that was poorly designed 30 years ago.
Right.
You know, we got a 48-inch pipe going across Cushman Road, and we got a 24-inch under the parking lot. It is what it is.
No, good, Mr. Chairman. One more question. When would you, if we didn't have the Cushman Road drainage in my backyard issue, when would you bring that bigger job before the council, before us for our budgeting process?
I'd probably try to bring it in this winter.
Okay.
And then work on, you know, funding. It's just because the longer we wait on any of those projects, the price is gonna go up. You know, we know the costs keep rising.
So you would plan to bring it into FY21?
I would try. You know.
Okay.
I mean, the plans are done now, so I mean, to sit them on the shelf for 4 or 5 years. We've paid good money to get it designed.
You know, good, Mr. Chairman, since I'm doing a little blabbing, I guess. It really sounds like, you know, that we know we're gonna have to do something on this area. Maybe not as much, maybe a smaller pipe and so forth. But it doesn't appear to be, if we have to address that bigger issue, which will change the flow in this area, it sounds like that needs to be done, at least in the process, before we really start laying pipe and doing all this work on the back of the Cushman Road
I
project.
think so, but I mean, it's a complex decision. What you guys want to do?
I don't think we would start digging on this project before we would have made the decision on the big one.
Right,
And so at that
Right.
point, we could scale this one down,
right,
so we wouldn't build it first and then decide, well, geez, we didn't need to build it.
Right.
And then all we're out is the $14,000 to design this, in a sense. But we could still use that design for the newer, smaller system in a way.
right. Well, or if I
Incorporate it
understand
into
it,
it.
actually have Dirigo Engineering come back and do it based on that flow.
Right.
Not this flow.
Right, right.
Which is probably still 14,000 by the time you design it.
Right.
But at least we don't, whoops, sorry, Ken. But at least we don't have to redesign it for the smaller flow. So if we
Already
wait,
redesigned.
if we approve the big project, then we do the engineering for the smaller flow. And then
Right.
that way, we don't have to re-engineer
Right.
twice.
Right.
The one good positive, if you do this part of it, is that at least you find out, number one, if you can get a permit. If you can't get a permit, then it kind of kills this issue.
Well, but we'll have to face that no matter what.
You won't know if you don't go through this design.
Right, but the point is, if we're gonna do the bigger project, and that's an if, obviously, we would still have to face that issue anyway, whether it's a smaller pipe or a bigger pipe. If we find that with a smaller pipe and a smaller flow, we still can't get a permit, then it's done. But,
And all we're out 14,000.
well, yes, at that point, but it really sounds like, and I think I agree with you, Steve, that the thing we have to do first is first decide on the bigger project.
Before we put a shovel in the ground on this project,
Right,
at least.
before we spend 14,000 for a design, which may well be too big.
Well, the only advantage, as he said, is if we start this project and we don't get a permit for it, we know there's no sense in going after the bigger project.
Yeah.
So if we design this, get the permit for 1,000, we're out 15 grand, and we know we can move to the bigger one.
Yeah, but it sounds like we're gonna have to do the bigger one anyway.
Not if you don't get permits.
If you don't get a permit for this
If you
one,
don't
you're gonna
get
get a
a permit
permit
for
for the
this
big one.
Well, the big one is a different permit.
It is, okay.
Because we're not dealing with the stream.
Okay,
This is because you're channelizing an existing stream.
okay. So it's possible we would get the permit for this project, but not the bigger one.
No.
How can that be a
Is
street?
that what you're saying?
No, it's possible, we'll get the permit for the big one. We've already talked with DEP when we had the original design, that was all set.
Oh, okay.
But you may not get the permit for the small one unless you go through the process and find out.
I'm more confused.
No.
But, okay.
No, go ahead, Ken.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like that what we need to do is not really say yes or no on this, we just need to table it. You know, that, and, you know, this is a resolution which, you know, we don't need to vote it up or down. It really sounds like we just need to table it, and then, which won't be that far ahead, is we start talking in January about
The big
bigger
project.
project. Just, and then, once we know that, and see what there goes, then we can either bring this back up and amend it,
Or be part of the bigger
or
project.
be part of the bigger project.
Yep,
That's just a thought.
that works.
I think so.
Well,
So, go ahead.
yes, one of the questions that I got on this is, if we made this part of the bigger project, now we have one permit. Could it,
Not necessarily. The permit for the channelizing the stream is different than the permit for the big project that discharges into the stream.
As far as, excuse me, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
go
and Paul, you correct me, as far as DEP, we can go in and apply for 2 permits. We can apply for the big project permit,
We
and we
already
can
have it.
apply for the stream permit.
But the big project has already been permitted.
It's already been permitted.
Okay.
We had put it on the bid.
So those 2 don't need to necessarily be connected at the DEP. They might be connected as far as funding
Right.
locally, but it wouldn't be connected at DEP.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, you have one more?
back again, how long would it take to get a permit from DEP on this one?
I don't think he quoted us a timeline. I know he quoted us a financial sum. With the way things have been turning around at DEP, I'd say you get at least 6 months. I mean, the simple permits take us months. Just get somebody to call you back sometime.
6 months is February of 2020. Excuse
And then
me.
you're into the next budget session.
Right. So Raymond, did you want to make a motion?
I make a motion on the table.
Is there a
Second.
Moving and seconded to table. Any discussion on table on this motion? If not, all in favor of tabling the motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to discussion items. Town Revitalization Committee.
That was Ray's request to put that on the agenda, the revitalization committee.
That look you make.
Sorry. I've been retired for
It's a
2
deer in the
weeks.
headlights.
That was funny.
There was a request from an individual that said that they wanted to look at, Mike, why don't you explain, I know we talked about it a little bit.
Well, she, apparently, the email you got, she had communicated with someone who, and they had a discussion about a particular municipality having a revitalization committee. Typically, at least when I think of revitalization, typically it's like a main street. And typically it involves facades and, grants for facades or funding for facades. So I think she kind of threw it out. She didn't know if that would be appropriate necessarily for Winslow.
I don't see it here either.
No, but she kind of threw it out as,
Yeah, why don't we table it, and then we'll bring it up next meeting and stuff again. And then I'll be able to get more information.
Anybody else have any items of discussion?
One question I'd like to know is, that there's a model, it's called the purpose, product, process. If we're gonna form a team, what's the purpose?
Right.
What's the product?
Yeah.
And what's the process?
Yeah.
Rather than just get a group of people.
Yeah.
This work almost sounds like it should be in comprehensive plan.
Makes sense, yeah.
Because if we're going to have a direction, that would seem to be the avenue to go with that.
Yes, yeah. Let me get back. To be perfectly honest with you, I got the email we put it on discussion. I was gonna do a lot more work with it, and I just haven't had a chance to. So why don't we just,
Motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, sorry.
you're right there, I apologize.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, we got the superintendent here. I'd like to know how we're coming with the school bill. Haven't seen much
You got an
movement over
update
there.
for us?
I seem to always miss the update opportunities.
Yeah, I didn't want to let you out here without.
Thank you. Prior to doing the update, can I just go back and make a comment about this Schedule C thing, or this coaching thing, or is that something you'd rather?
No, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Go ahead.
Is that okay to do that?
Yeah.
So, I guess where I'd go back is just a couple of things. There is nothing in state statute that prevents you from doing what you're currently doing, with being a head coach.
Leaving in bucket.
And being paid for it. Nothing in state statute. It's all what's in your town charter and how your town charter language is written. Having said that, the coaching positions do fall under Schedule C. And Schedule C is a contracted position, yearly contracted position, 1-year contract. The difference with what you're having a conversation about right now is that we're talking about Ray Karen, who's an outstanding citizen, outstanding individual.
No.
Forgets things sometimes. Other than that,
None of those.
we're talking about Ray Karen.
Yeah.
So, but Ken's point is a valid point as well. Not everybody is Ray Karen, and so leadership is tough, and you have tough decisions to consider and make and discuss and look at all of the avenues. So that's kind of where you're at with this. It's really what the charter language says and what you're willing to do with that to make exceptions for a Ray Karen or not moving forward. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I just want to say is, you know, if I wasn't, I'm not in favor of the change, but yet, you know, I know there's both sides to the issue, and it's a close issue, and it can be abused and it cannot be abused. You have to keep it. I'm just, you know, as far as, you know, it goes. It's a tough issue.
And when I started bus driving, I asked that question. I come in here at the office, I says, if I drive a school bus to Winslow part-time, can I still be a counselor? And they said yes, because if I couldn't have, at that time, I was driving a school bus just like he was to make a few bucks. And I probably wouldn't have run for council.
Well,
So,
just a little history. It wasn't that long ago, I want to say within 10 or 12 years, there was a citizen in Winslow who won an election and then was informed that he couldn't hold office and drive a bus.
I know.
And he chose to drive a bus.
Yep.
And we had to have another election.
Yep.
I don't know if that was a different rule back then, and it got rescinded?
no, it was a position he was taking on the town.
Yeah, I think he was a full-time bus driver.
Right.
Yeah.
And he won the election for council.
Right.
And had to make a decision.
Either the council or work for them.
Right, but you're saying that doesn't happen now?
Well, no, if you read the language, that's how it could be interpreted. And
So
that's
it's
why-
ambiguous right now, and you
right,
want to
and
make it
that's why
straightforward?
we said it
Okay.
should be, you know,
Cut and dry.
it shouldn't be maybe.
Right,
It
okay.
should be one way or the other.
Okay,
Because otherwise than that, if we say to Joe, well, you can't, but we say to Tom, yes, you can,
right,
and then we say to Mary, yeah, you can do
right,
that,
right, okay, now I understand.
that's the issue.
So someone else interpreted that ruling differently than we've interpreted it since Ben came on, for instance?
No, it's both the same. It's the same with Ray.
Well, Ben was allowed to serve, and this
Oh,
gentleman
yeah,
wasn't.
no, right, Steve,
So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, right.
It's the
My
same
understanding-
So
rule,
we should clean that up, is what we,
it's the
what we're
same
saying.
rule, but it appears to be
Interpreted two different
different
ways.
times,
Yeah,
different ways.
okay.
And that's the issue.
Right,
We went over that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, all I wanted to do was make a few comments about what
Yeah,
We tabled that.
what is appropriate and whatnot. Yeah. So construction update, there's a tremendous amount of site work going on. If you've been at the high school, if you look in the front parking lot, you can see that there's a lot of work being done with the parking spaces. You have to have those parking spaces taken care of before the school year starts because the construction work will continue. And so you'll lose the parking spaces in the back of the building. So that's happening. Perhaps more importantly, if you go around the back, don't fall in the hole, but if you go around the back, you'll see a lot of work going on with walls. There's a lot of site work happening there as well. We meet every 2 weeks, and when I say we meet every 2 weeks, our project manager, our Ledgewood construction manager, Shelley, myself, Joel, just for an update. It's not changes, just how are things going. And the last week that we meet of the month is also the requisition meeting, and so that's where we get our billing. We get all of the information that we need to have from there. And right now, knock on wood, everything's going smoothly. No skeletons have been found yet. Some of the tests, some of the things that they need to do have all come back positive, so all good, so far so good. We've also had meetings regarding the expansion of the cafeteria because we had some savings. Those drawings have been drawn up, and right now they're out to see what we're looking at for a cost. They'll get back to us on that as quickly as possible. So right now, everything's good.
Okay.
You know, good, Mr. Chairman, just to spring it on you here. You know, I sent out that email to Joel, and we probably all read the Morning Sentinel a week ago Sunday about the surge, the surge in population and the surge in school and everything. And I certainly understand that the comments weren't meant to be absolute, but if in fact there's any thinking around that, should we, the council and the school board with the school administration, just say, okay, do we all have the same numbers and do we all think this is the best forecast going forward? Because the worst case would be, as you well know, that we get to 2 school consolidation and then we make an exciting discovery that the elementary school isn't big enough.
Well, you have this, it's interesting, Ken, because if you look at the statistics that you provided in your email, you'll see that those statistics run fairly consistent, that the population is down. What's happening in the last 2 years, last year and this year, you've had this anomaly in that at the elementary, when you look at the birth rates for the last 2 years, you should have been looking at about 68 kids, because that's been consistent. But in the last 2 years, you've looked at 80 and 87. So people want to come here. They're not necessarily being born here, they want to come here.
Right.
For whatever reason. There are a lot of reasons why you'd want to be here. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on. I mean, obviously, that's not something you could plan on and have a conversation about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We made decisions based on the data that we had, based on what we could afford, based on the times that we were in. I will say this, I mean, right now, you're looking at numbers, because in kindergarten, we have an early K program, so you have a lot of numbers there, and as you know, for the budget process, this budget is very lean. We asked for what we needed. There's nothing in this budget that's padded, and so that's good, because you're fiscally responsible. Sometimes it's not so good when you run into a situation where you say, oh my goodness, we had another 25 kids register, what are we going to do? So that's the issue with running it so tight. But right now in kindergarten, we're about 17 kids, 17 per classroom, and that's because we have an early K program with 14 students in there. We added a teacher, if you recall, not through the local funds, because we eliminated something in the title programs to be able to do that. In grade 1, we've had a bump again. And so right now you're looking at 19, 20 kids in grade 1 per average. I also want to remind you that we're 2 weeks out. So this is the time when parents come in and say, we want to draw our records, we're going someplace. So it's possible you could lose 10 kids. Yeah. It's possible you could gain 10 kids. You don't know, and you can't say, well, we need somebody last year based on what's happened. You have to see what's going on. Grade 4, grade 2 are our lowest numbers, 16.25 for averaging. Grade 4, 19.20 right now. Grade 5, 18 right now. Grade 4, 18 right now. Grade 5, 18 right now. So you're right about where you typically are, except grade 1's a little bit higher. And right now, the plan for that, you may have heard this or recall this, we talked about going to a school-wide model in our Title I program. The school-wide model allows you to serve more students rather than just targeting kids. And so by doing that, we have technicians in the Title I program that we're going to be able to put into the first grade classes in order to provide the additional support during reading or during other times of the day in order to relieve some of that pressure on those teachers. And that's a very common practice in a lot of schools around us. So that's kind of where we sit. So we won't know for sure where we stand. If we have this influx and we have a bunch more kids in grade 1 come September 5th, then we'll have to look at Plan B to address this year.
Yeah, for good, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate it. You know, would it be advisable to have this discussion at a September council meeting? Just an update. You know, yeah, we're okay. Oh my goodness, all these kids showed up.
I am happy to come and update you.
Please.
Yep.
Ring.
One of the things I noticed, and Amanda, maybe you can comment, I know in your neighborhood, when a house comes up for sale, and usually it's an elderly type of person, and I know because the house next to my daughter is coming in, and my daughter just moved in with her kid, and, you know, hopefully have a couple more grandchildren, but
We've had 4 houses within Rockford of our house.
Yeah.
Moving out and the young families moving
young families are moving in.
All of the kids younger than the age of 4.
Yeah, and so what the school committee, what the town council's doing, what everybody's doing is all enhancing, you know, where people want to move to the town of Winslow. And I think it's a community effort, it's an effort by everybody involved to make this town attractive. The mill rate is critical at school, to keep the schools up and to provide housing, and that's very affordable for people coming in.
Really random.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I moved here a few years ago, and I think one of the things that might be able to help you is real estate, something you can gauge as well. I'm sure the real estate is going up right now, skyrocketing right now, and I think it might be able to help with the teachers and the numbers, because they can also be able to see who's moving in. And I'm sure a lot of the people that are moving in are younger and from the lower generation, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with marijuana. I'm sure a lot of the influx has to do with marijuana, just because you saw it happen in Colorado, you saw it happen in a lot of states that weren't too big, and now a lot of people are coming, and most of those people are within that age group that the children are, 4, 5, 6 years old. And so those people are coming from Boston, New York, and they're buying real estate and they're buying land. So I think that maybe we're gonna help you guys out by like gauging the real estate with how many people are coming in.
Good, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that we do have is good information. We have, from a code enforcement officer standpoint, knows how many building permits, how many new houses. Judy keeps track of properties that has been sold, right? So we can judge the activity. So if we see that we've got a lot of new housing, that's going to increase the population even more. And if we see a lot of the properties being turned over, we can judge that. And I would think that would be, I keep going back to the comprehensive plan, but that would be a very good ongoing process, that we have that information, and we get the information from the school. You know, we should be able to pretty well predict what the population is going to be and what the actual growth rate is, both in age as well as total numbers. Just as a thought.
Any further discussion?
Motion to adjourn.
So,
Adjourn.